Hey everybody, welcome to No Plan, No Problem, a weekly D&D podcast where two Dungeon Masters go on a mythical quest in search of actionable tips for you to use in your next game. I'm your Dungeon Master, Anto.
And I am a wereboy, Matthew Perkins.
You can find my stuff across the internet at icarus-games.co.uk.
And you can find my stuff over at matthewperkins.net.
So, Matt, today, as alluded to in your intro, we are talking about the Wolfie Boys, the Werewolves. Those lycanthrope folk. Let me just click on this here so we can get the werewolf up on the screen for the people at home to see if you're watching this as opposed to listening to it. If you listen to it, sorry. So werewolves are cursed beings that have been subject to lycanthropy, which is a curse or a disease depending on what edition or canon you follow, that means that when there is a full moon they turn into a mindless beast, and they are one of the monsters in D&D, and they are a lot of fun, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
And the adventurer that's going to help us on our quest to find our first tip about werewolves is named Shadow Shifter 04 from D&D Beyond. And Shadow Shifter 04 says, if bitten and the saving throw is failed, can you become a different kind of lycanthrope? And I think this person means if you were bitten by a werewolf, Anto, could that transform you into a werebear or a were-rat? How many kinds of were things are there, do you reckon?
I think that there are many were things. Let's take a quick look over on D&D Beyond at what were creatures there are. So there's a halfling were-rat, the were-bear, the jackal were, the were-bat, the were-bear, the boar, rat, raven. There's a lot of were creatures. There's a lot more were creatures than I expected.
Yeah. I'm actually angry about that. I think there's too many.
Yeah, that's like, you can be a were-raven if you're playing Strahd, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
So, the curse of lycanthropy. A humanoid creature can be afflicted with the curse of lycanthropy after being wounded by a lycanthrope, or if one or both of its parents are lycanthropes. Yada, yada, yada. I mean, it doesn't seem to say that it can't.
Is that all it takes? Is that all? So, wait. If you are a were person or like a wereboy and you bite me or you scratch me, I have a saving throw and I become like you. It's like a zombie bite.
That's what it would suggest. I don't know if there is a mechanic in the werewolf stat block for that. This is just listed in kind of the description of the creature. It says remove curse spell can rid the afflicted lycanthropy curse. Or if you're a natural born lycanthrope, you can freed only using the wish spell. But
no, in the stat block, it does say, if the target is a humanoid, it must succeed on a DC 12 Constitution saving throw or be cursed with the
Oh, there it is.
Life.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like that has enough pageantry attached to it.
Not at all.
That could happen accidentally. My cat loves me. He is a beautiful, loving boy, okay? And I love him back. He's bitten me a couple of times, you know?
I mean,
he didn't mean to. It just happens when you're a, a feisty little boy, being a ragamuffin around. So I don't know if I'd want that to be able to happen accidentally. Like, how do you put the safety trigger on the werewolf curse?
I think that it would be increasing... No. I was about to say increasing the DC, but you don't want to do that. The DC is low. You keep it a low DC to make it more likely that you're going to pass. But like the were-tiger... The DC is higher, it's DC 13. The were-boar is 12. Let's have a look at what the were-bear is. The were-bear is DC 14. So different animals, you are more or less likely to become afflicted by lycanthropy, depending on which one of them has hit you.
So in the world, that might be described by, like, maybe there are fewer were-tigers because it's easier to resist or harder to resist?
Harder to resist? If it was harder to resist, there should be more of them, surely.
Oh, that must mean that there's too many were-tigers. That seems like the opposite.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if I were to introduce lycanthropy to my game, I would have it be that once you fail, that you have the save, because there needs to be a save, but once you've failed the save, be it that, right, you've been cursed with lycanthropy, you can remove this in other ways other than powerful magic so long as you do it before the first moon. So with werewolves specifically, you've got until that first moon where it kind of sets in, so that if the player isn't interested in kind of exploring what it means to be a lycanthrope and kind of the things that go along with that, they have this path to go, right, okay, one save hasn't sealed my fate. I can go and buy a potion or seek someone out before I lose any of my autonomy under the changing of the moon.
Yeah, and I like that idea and that sentiment, because that's saying, let's put a little bit of not necessarily, actually, let's put a little bit of player agency in this story, because that's my gripe. Like, I want it to be more deliberate. Like, if you become a vampire, you probably have to do heaps of stuff. You have to like join the fan club. You've got to drink of the blood. Yeah, you've got to sleep upside down in a coffin somewhere. Probably there's probably a whole bunch of stuff you have to do. And if it's just you get bit by a dude, that's not as fun.
It's you're right. It needs more pageantry.
If we add pageantry, right, we say there is some kind of decision-making process in that where someone doesn't necessarily have to like consent to becoming a werewolf, because it is a curse, right? It's meant to be a bad thing. But if there is some kind of will being imposed when someone becomes a werewolf, what if the animal you change into is a reflection of your personality?
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
And I don't know if necessarily that means like it's codified, like wizards become badgers and rogues become rats. It's like the player can choose, and they can justify it somehow later.
I think it would be cool if it was kind of if you assume that the stat block represents something about a creature's personhood. So it takes your strongest attributes. So say you were really strong and strength was your highest ability score, then you turn into a werebear. Or if your wisdom was the highest, you turn into a wereraven. Or you could even have it so that you have a short list of animals assigned to each stat, and then you maybe randomly roll depending on what the highest stat for the player is, or they get some kind of input. You say, right, you're going to turn into something. Your highest ability score is intelligence. Here are the options that you can turn into, which ones you want to turn into, and involve them in the process, involve the player in the process a little bit.
Yeah, I think that idea of tethering different animal types to different stats, that should be the tip. But for this person, the actual answer is if you get bit by a raven, you turn into a raven. Our answer, our fun NP situation is going to be, hey, tether that stuff. It'll be fun.
Because
should we roll for promotion?
Yes, let's do this thing. And we are in the promotion zone.
Good. I'm glad that you announced that, because I can't tell when we enter the promotion zone.
That's why I announced it.
Oh, good. And every time we do that, you need to announce it, because just imagine that I'm a blind man and you're leading me through, and you have to go, okay, Matt, now we're in the promotion zone. I say, thank you, Anto. Thank you. You've always been there for me. Hey, if you want to help support our podcast, no plan, no problem, there are a couple of things that you can do to help out. The first is you just have to have a listen. That's what you're doing now. On your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube, have a listen. If you are on YouTube, we'd really appreciate if you could leave us a comment downstairs. Have we missed something about werewolves? Is there something that you want us to talk about? You know, just say something. Literally say anything, as long as it's, nice and polite and we like it. And we also have a Patreon. We have a Patreon. What do we have going on over on the Patreon, Anto?
So as patrons, you'll get access to our pre-show, which is what we do almost every time we record, to warm up, get into the zone, talk about all kinds of random nonsense, usually not related to D&D, quite often related to things completely different from D&D, just to help us get in that zone before we start off. And then you'll also get access to a bunch of kind of supplement material that we generate in these episodes. So when we do certain segments, we might make new creatures or feats and things like that, and we throw all of that up onto Patreon as well.
Mm-hmm. And if you happen to be listening on Apple Podcasts, for every 25-star reviews with a comment we get on Apple Podcasts, we will take one thing that's on Patreon and we'll make it public so everybody can see it. So if you want to rob our patrons, hey, leave those 5-star reviews, okay?
Just Robin Hood them.
Robin Hood. Who does he rob? He robs the rich, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we're not rich.
We're not rich, no. So, reverse sideways Robin Hooders.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Leave a 5-star review and someone's going to get crimed. Let's get out of this zone.
Okay, so the next tip. It is time for the next tip, and I am talking about the next tip. So...
we are going into Stats Town, correct?
Oh, yeah, we're going into Stats Town. I forget about that every single time.
Here's the thing. You and I are in the car, okay? We're driving along. We've got our beats pumping. And I'm going, hey, look, there's the exit. Stats Town. 1 kilometer. Take the exit. And you're going, you're still driving. I can't drive. And you're still plugging it. We got to do it. And every time we get here, we just have to cut across 3 lanes of traffic.
Yeah, it's the drifting meme to get into the lane to go into Stats Town every time.
Yeah, welcome to Tokyo Drift Stats Town. Today on Tokyo Drift Stats Town, I kind of wanted to talk about this idea, and I don't know if this really qualifies as a Stats Town, but I want to talk about the idea of reverse werewolves. So a werewolf is a person that transforms into an animal. Mm-hmm. What about like an animal society where animals are transforming into people?
Oh.
Okay. And I don't know if there's juice in here, and I don't know what we're going to get out of this, but I just kind of want to theory craft it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book called The Belgariad, and I don't want to spoil it at all, so I'm not going to say too much, but there is a character at one point who was a wolf who learned magic and used that magic to transform into a human and decided to live their life as a human, which is really cool, right? Like there's a lot of juice there. Have you had an experience with reverse werewolves?
Not that I can immediately think of, but I do really like the idea because there's a lot of different ways you can take it. Do you go down the route of the creature has been turned into a humanoid shape, but they are still a beast in their mind, so they still act in a bestial manner? Or are you giving them that kind of humanoid level of sentience?
They get personhood in the same way that when like you watch a horror movie about a werewolf and they transform into a vicious killer, that's not the person deciding to do that.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone that like Prometheus stealing the fire gets, suddenly they're an animal and they unlock reasoning for the next 24 hours.
So what I think would be interesting about that is that I can completely see a situation where an animal is turned into a person and they unlock this presumed new font of knowledge and understanding and reasoning, and they do not want to give that up. So they are hell-bent on doing everything that is necessary to just kind of further whatever it is that's turned them. So if it's a spell, they are consumed with making sure that spell can be recast within the 24-hour period. So they're constantly like stealing the spell components, taking the things that are necessary, robbing places for the gold or diamonds necessary to sustain the spell. If it's a potion, they're stealing. They're doing everything in their power to make sure that they don't revert back to being a kind of mindless beast.
And I get the kind of vibe of like kind of like stories about ghosts where it's like Robert Downey Jr., you're back for one day in this ghost story, and like this your last day on Earth, and it's like they're visiting their lost love or whatever. So I imagine this kind of story and this character. I think this character is actually a sympathetic villain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because they have they're bent on this desire to get the materials to stay a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're probably in love. Like they probably have been doing this for a long time and they've been getting their one more day repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. And it's getting harder and harder. And they're having to do more and more to sustain it. Oh man, I like this.
Because you'd have situations where they'd probably have kind of a duplicitous view of the world where they want to kind of live every moment. They're like, oh, it is that one more day kind of feel, but they're also always thinking about how am I going to activate the next set of circumstances to make sure that I am still a person tomorrow.
Yeah. And like I can imagine that they I'm making a lot of assumptions about how effective animals are at life,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd imagine that there's some kind of like need for survival that's
Yeah.
intrinsic to being an animal that this person animal can kind of import in their life. And maybe like they found themselves being like very successful at something
Yeah.
because they're just uninhibited by societal norms against survival.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes in life, survival is not polite. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So they would probably like the idea of them being a sympathetic villain, them being kind of like this business mogul. They've got the kind of killer instinct that the bourgeoisie need to reach those levels. So
can I do something?
Go on.
I was trying to think about what creature they would be. What if they were a fox and they became like a thief that will take anything?
Yeah, I like that.
Like, because foxes steal, right? Do they? I've never met a fox.
Let's say, for the sake of the argument, that foxes steal, whether or not they really do.
Okay.
Because I don't know.
Okay. Well, here's my question for you then. What is sustaining the spell? What do, or like the effect, what kind of resource do they need? And don't go too dark.
Yeah. I think it needs to be something attainable daily. It can't be so obscure that you couldn't sustain it. So it has to be relatively mundane in its base components. And it either needs to be a spell that is cast or a potion, I think. I think if it's a potion, they can probably brew it themselves if they have the materials. Maybe they came across the potion in a wizard's lab. Maybe this fox broke into a wizard's tower to steal something, knocked over a cup of potion, drank it, and turned into a person. And then learned the secrets and has been carrying on with that potion.
Well, that's kind of like a magic solution and an alchemy solution. Mm-hmm. What about a divine solution? What if this is a fox that was like cursed? Like this animal drew a god's ire.
Okay.
Or like maybe even a boon. Actually, he was the best fox.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually a boon that was granted to him. And the way that he can sustain it is by like making offerings to the god that gave him the boon.
Yeah.
So, because that way you don't have to have, like, if the alchemical thing with this particular kind of mushroom, you have this character that's going around looking for this particular kind of mushroom all the time.
Yeah.
You have something that's looking for more grandiose feats and offerings to this this god of foxes.
Yeah, and you can. I like that because you can lean into what you want the personality of this creature to be. So if you want to do something that isn't a fox, if you want to have like a greedy tyrant, then you can have it be kind of the god of greed and excess that has granted them this boon, and they're hoarding wealth and stealing from people to kind of please this god, and you can take it in any number of directions for their motivation and have it tied kind of intrinsically to what has turned them.
Dude, this is sick.
Yeah, it's a really cool story idea.
Yeah. Hey, do you have any idea of what a tip should be from this?
I mean, I think the tip should just be do this. Just wholesale, take this and use it in a game. I think it's strong enough to be its own tip. Use the reverse werewolf.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's fair enough. That's our step down. Do a reverse werewolf. It sounds like a wrestling move.
Yes, and it has to be do a reverse werewolf.
Yeah, and it's so illegal. Like, if you use the reverse werewolf in a match, you will get disqualified.
Absolutely, 100%.
I think the adventure that's helping us with our next tip, I think that you've got this one, correct?
I do. Let's have a quick change of scene, and
it's good because I remember there being a lot of text with this one, and my eyes don't work so good.
No, I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do it.
Zoom this in so people can see. So this comes from Grimwald the Wizard over on r/D&D, and it's a question about werewolf immunities. And the gist of it is, are werewolves kind of too powerful and too hard to hit. They say, so while I'm looking at random monsters, I realize that werewolves may be a little bit untouchable. They have damage immunities to all the different damage types and from any non-magical weapons that aren't silvered. That all makes sense in common law, but would an attack be considered a weapon attack if it's with, say, a monster's claws? Or if it's a weapon attack, would it be considered non-magical because it's part of the creature, or because the monster is considered magical because it's a fantasy creature? They're essentially trying to say, under what conditions can you actually hurt a werewolf?
Yeah. Because he got to it at the beginning there, where they were mentioning silvered weapons. Because werewolves, if I were to punch a werewolf, it would not do anything, right? Not because I'm weak. I'm strong. I'm the strongest man in the world. But because they are immune to any kind of mundane weapon. If I were to stab them with a kitchen knife, nothing. They don't care. I guess maybe like the fiction is that they heal through it, or maybe the fiction is that it doesn't even pierce the skin. I'm not sure. But in order to damage a werewolf, you need to use magic, you need to use magical weapons, or you need to use silvered weapons. And there's probably I think that question asked was getting to a couple of little nuanced situations. Like, what if a magic beast attacked them? I don't know. That's probably not going to happen, right?
I mean, I would say even if a magic beast attacked them, unless their mechanical entry for whatever bit of their body they're using, so say it's claws, unless their claws specifically say they count as a magic weapon, they are going to count as the slashing damage, so they're immune. So werewolf is immune to it.
I agree. But is it too powerful? If a party comes up against a werewolf and they're not expecting it, they're going to get wrecked.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
They're very tough.
A werewolf is challenge rating 3, but being immune to those kinds of damage, my party's currently level 8, but they don't have, they've got one magic weapon. So one of the party members would be able to do physical damage to them. They'd have to rely on spells other than that. So if they got caught unaware by a werewolf, or if there was a pack of werewolves that attacked them, they would have a bad time, because all their damage output would be relying on the wizards dealing magic damage, and the wizards are the most squishy, so the werewolves would just go for the wizards and just tear them apart.
Yeah, I don't think I like the idea of werewolves having immunity to those kind of damage types, because the counter to that is just for the party beforehand to have gone, we're going to go get our weapons silvered, and that costs 50 gold pieces. Why does it cost gold to make your weapons silver? Am I right? That's a little bit of a humor for you. You can tell your friends that one. So they spend 50 gold and they silver their weapons. That's a decision that they make beforehand. And past that point, the werewolf gets negated and just becomes a tough monster rather than being an impossible monster. And I hate that the only thing standing between the party and the player and having a good time, the party and the werewolf and the party having a good time, is that decision. Because how are they going to know to make that decision?
But I think that's part of the point. Either you work it into the narrative. So if they are caught unaware by a werewolf, then the narrative is, we are suddenly in a situation in which we are completely unprepared, and it forces us outside of our comfort zone and to think outside of the box in ways that we previously haven't. We have to get really creative with how we're using our actions and our abilities. And that is an interesting situation to put them in, because they're going to come up with things that they never thought of and that you never thought of. Beyond that point, if the werewolf survives, then they are rewarded for learning about the werewolf and going, right, okay, we need to go get our weapons silvered. The process might be really simple, going finding a smith and paying the gold, but then there is a reward for taking that action the next time they come up against the werewolf, because they would be able to just damage it normally, and they feel like they've gone, okay, we learned about the creature, we went and took action, and now we're seeing the benefit of that. So even though it circumvents one of the things that makes this creature special, it is a reward for the players to go, okay, you've done the smart thing, here you are, you will do massive damage to it now.
There is one word you said in that little explanation, which I completely agree with. I like it. There's one word you said that's doing a lot of lifting. And when you said the encounter, not with the werewolves, the encounter with the werewolf. Because if the party doesn't have those silvered weapons and you're trying to teach them that they need to get silvered weapons, hey, one werewolf is enough. Did you
definitely
play ever play Perfect Dark on the Nintendo 64?
No.
It was kind of like a GoldenEye 007 game, same engine, right? Shooter. And what me and my friends used to do is, this is a situation I want you to create with this werewolf. We would put a bot in the game that had the highest difficulty and the highest AI and infinite health. And then we would all join as well, because he had the thing that would let you have extra people join, like more than 4. And we'd put all ourselves on 1 health. There's no way we could kill the bot, right? And all we would do is just run from it. And every now and then, like the bot would be coming up to us. Be like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice myself. You guys go ahead. And it would just one-shot us. And we're just screaming. That's the kind of encounter you could have with the a single werewolf and nobody has a silvered weapon.
Like, if you throw a single werewolf at a party, and it can apply quite, I think, beyond CR3, which is what the werewolf is. It will apply for a couple of levels, provided they don't have magic items. You can throw it quite a high level party, and it will do some damage and make them stop and make them afraid, because especially melee-based characters or physical damage-based characters that are used to doing a lot of damage, when you just say, it does nothing, that's when everyone that isn't the tank goes, well, if they can't hurt it, what am I going to do? Because in most circumstances, when a wizard is attacking something and your tank is attacking something, or your barbarian's attacking something, you're usually doing damage. You're both doing damage to it. So if the barbarian isn't, and the barbarian is the thing keeping the wizard alive, like a second set of armor just 20 feet away from them, any time in which I've seen barbarians or fighters or any of those melee-based characters struggle, the spellcasters immediately panic. And that's what you want from this first encounter, is you want that panic of, oh god, we can't hurt it, or oh god, half of us are useless against this thing, what are we going to do? And then you feed into that.
Well, I reckon that should absolutely be the tip, because like the goal of your first werewolf encounter with your party should be panic. And the way you do that is, if they don't have silvered weapons already, just give them a single werewolf and watch it not care about their attacks. They will absolutely brick it.
And if you want to use a werewolf and your party's a higher level, but they still don't have magic items, just throw some legendary actions in there. And legendary actions, just in general, if you put legendary actions on something that normally doesn't have it, that is usually enough to make the players poo their pants, because they're like, oh god, this thing, they understand legendary action means powerful creature, and couple that with immunity to a bunch of damage, that's going to throw them into all sorts of chaos.
Yeah, dude, I hope we get to record an episode one day just entirely about legendary actions, because they're so fun.
Here's the thing. We are our own bosses, and we can decide to record that episode.
Oh, wow.
We can just add it to the list of things.
We could just add it to the list. That's so exciting. Hey, this has been a pretty fun episode. I actually really enjoyed this. That went so quick.
Oh my god, yeah, it's almost been half an hour already. Whew.
Yeah, it has. Hey, do you reckon you could recap the tips for us? Tell me what we've learned today.
So, what we've learned today is the first tip was to tether the kind of lycanthropy monster type to the key ability score of the creature that is turning. So, bear with your strength, etc., etc. Tip 2 was to just do a reverse werewolf. Just do it.
Yep.
And tip 3 was that the goal of your first werewolf encounter should be to elicit panic in the players.
Yeah. Panic like a fox in the chicken coop. I've seen Chicken Run, I think. Might have, I don't know. I don't think Chicken Run is still in the cultural zeitgeist.
I mean, yeah, no, that's fair. I agree with that. Shall we round this out?
Yeah, we should round this up. I'll just remind everybody that if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to leave a comment downstairs. Hey, my name has been Matthew Perkins. This has been great fun. You can find all my stuff over at matthewperkins.net.
My name is Anto, and you can find me across the internet at icarus-games.co.uk.
The song that plays us out is called All Together by a band called House Hats. Ugh, I can't speak. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you later.
Bye-bye.
Together.